Whitetail Addictions. The hunt is on. There's no going back now. It's in your blood. A primal need that must be met. It drives you. It consumes you. It takes you to the edge. What was once a simple pastime has now become your addiction. This season, come share the excitement with a group of fellow whitetail addicts from Lone Wolf. Learn from their time-tested techniques, as well as their mistakes, and be there to experience firsthand the highs and the lows we've all come to thrive on. They are do-it-yourselfers just like you. Their season begins the moment the last one ends. And when it comes time to release an arrow, they come up big. This is Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions. This week on Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions, we introduce you to whitetail addict Alan Bliss. Alan is from the big buck state of Iowa, where he's been taking some great trophy whitetails. Besides filming his own hunts, Alan's also been filming some of his family and friends taking some great deer too. And we're going to share all the big buck action with you right here on Whitetail Addictions.
I got started at a young age, squirrel hunting, small game with my father. By the age of 8, I was tagging along on deer drives. And by the age of 10, I took my first doe with a shotgun. And that pretty much got me started and hooked on deer hunting. I've been hooked on it ever since. You know, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think of deer hunting and where I'm going to hunt or how I can hunt this farm different, how I can get into it without spooking them. You know, it's just an addiction that, you know, a thought crosses my mind every day about deer hunting. It's something that I can't get enough of. There's just something about mature whitetail, watching them all summer and just the excitement of waiting for that opportunity to harvest one and then capture it on video. I enjoy, you know, videotaping about as much someone else as I do hunting myself. To not only get a mature buck, but to catch it on video is that much more challenging and that much more addicting and exciting to accomplish and be able to watch the hunt back. Not only be able to tell the story, but to watch the story back and show people. It definitely makes it tougher. You know, the cameraman with you, you have more commotion going in, more movement in a tree. But the results of killing a mature buck on video, the end product is well worth the extra commotion and hassle it is carrying the camera in. I feel it. You know, it's just nothing better than killing a mature buck on video. It's the ultimate thrill.
Welcome back to Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions. Our first hunt takes place during the early youth muzzleloader season in Iowa. Alan and his nephew Ryan Hinton have set out to try and capture Ryan's first big buck kill on video. Alan's been watching a group of deer all summer feeding in an isolated patch of alfalfa and has a particular tree in mind to hang their lone wolf stands. As the sun begins to set on the breezy evening hunt, deer start to emerge from the cover, heading for the alfalfa, including a good buck. As quickly as the deer enter the field, they disappear behind some standing corn. A few moments later, some does emerge from the corn, and one of the smaller bucks comes back out in the open to investigate. The young buck ends up feeding right in front of Ryan's stand. But it's not what Ryan's looking for.
We think the buck's still feeding up on the edge of this corn. We're gonna go put a stalk on him.
As Ryan cautiously approaches the end of the corn, he spots the nice buck bedded in the alfalfa and prepares for a shot. Congratulations on a great early season trophy, Ryan. Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions will be right back.
On last week's show, I talked about morning over evening hunts. There are 3 basic areas I concentrate on: feeding, transition, and bedding areas. Most hunters don't consider hunting a food source in the morning, but I think this is a great starting point to determine a deer's direction of travel. When setting up on these areas, make sure you are far enough away that you are not spooking the deer, but close enough to see what direction a deer vacates the area. Once you're determining the direction of travel from the feeding area, follow the corridor far enough back so you can find a spot that is accessible before daylight. By working transition areas back and observing deer movement, you should be able to fine-tune the area where deer are bedding. By following this system, you should have a good idea where your deer are moving in mornings. Next week, we will tell you how to get twice as much action out of your morning sets.
Welcome back to Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions. Our next hunt takes place during the early archery season. Alan is filming his good friend Gary Rowan. And the pair have obviously picked the right spot when this great 8-point shows up and begins slowly feeding in their direction. As the wide 8-point continues, feeding on acorns and closing the distance, Gary starts looking for a shooting lane through the thick early season vegetation. Just as Gary releases, his arrow deflects off a small limb and misses the big 8-point clean. But the big buck doesn't know what happened and gave Gary an opportunity to reach for another arrow. But unfortunately, the thick vegetation keeps the second arrow from hitting its mark too. But as we all know, deer season doesn't last forever, and after a disappointing miss, you have to shake it off and get right back in the game.
It's October 18th. We're in the middle of Iowa muzzleloader season. It's raining. My cameraman took me to one of his spots that he has because it's not far from the truck. As you can tell, it's It's raining off and on, and sometimes rather heavily, so we're somewhat close to the vehicle. This is the first time I've been here, so I have no idea what to expect, so just see what happens.
It doesn't take long before Gary and Alan see a couple of young bucks sparring in the distance. Then, out of nowhere, a great buck shows up. Now that's the way to redeem yourself, Gary. Congratulations on a great Iowa whitetail. Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions will be right back.
Every aspect of this stand was designed for the mobile hunter. How it integrates, everything works together in unison. Who's constantly, taking the stand down, moving at different locations.
You got him. Welcome back to Lone Wolf's Whitetail Addictions. Just prior to the early muzzleloader season, Alan had managed to film this buck while bow hunting near one of his food plots. Alan was well aware of the buck's whereabouts, having kept his eyes on the buck since July with his trail cameras. The buck never came into bow range, but with the muzzleloader season just days away, Alan knew exactly where he needed to be for the opener.
Hopefully we get something to come in tonight. We got snow flurries, cold front come in. It's supposed to get down in the 30s tonight, so hopefully deer should be moving.
And on the opening evening of Iowa's early muzzleloader season, Alan climbed up into his Lone Wolf stand overlooking the food plot, and just like he thought, the big 14-point showed up right on cue. Congratulations on a great buck, Alan. With one more buck tag in his pocket and the rut getting heated up, Alan headed for an area that he knew held a good concentration of does. And with it being the 11th of November, Alan knew the mature bucks in the area wouldn't be far away. On the first evening in his new setup, Alan had this nice buck come in directly under his stand. But as Alan tried to find an opening to shoot through, the buck caught his movement. The next morning, Alan was in his lone wolf stand well before daylight, and at first light, had this great buck heading in his direction. Unfortunately for Alan, the big buck caught his wind and didn't stick around long enough to offer Alan a shot. Later that morning, Alan caught some movement through the brush, and it was another buck. But this one was much bigger. As the big, wide, massive 8-point moves past the hunter's position, Alan does his best to keep the buck in frame until he gets into his shooting lane.
Boy, did that happen fast. So the way the action is here, 11 November in Iowa. Those bucks are moving, checking for does, chasing does. That's exciting. I'm pretty sure I got a good hit on him.
Congratulations on another great buck, Alan. Thanks to Alan Bliss and for all the footage he put together for us this season. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of Alan and the monster bucks he's chasing in the Hawkeye State next season.